Hey, George.
Hey, Nick.
Sorry to interrupt this episode of Reslayer's Take, but we have to tell the people about ButcherBox.
Oh, yeah. Listen, friends, we only do ads for sponsors we think are great, and ButcherBox is on our good list.
ButcherBox sent us each a customized box of high-quality meat, and they were so freaking good. It's so convenient having a box of incredible meat in your freezer without ever having to step foot in a grocery store.
And the greatest part? This antibiotic-free and humanely raised meat comes with plenty of curated tips and recipes. So whipping up awesome dinners is a cinch.
These prices are impossible to beat for the quality, and where the heck else can you get free protein for a whole dang year? Not the grocery store. So sign up at butcherbox.com/reslayer and get our special deal.
ButcherBox is offering our listeners a free for a year offer plus an additional $20 off. Choose chicken breast, salmon, or ground beef free in every order for a year. Sign up today at butcherbox.com/reslayer and use code RESLAYER to choose your free for a year offer, plus $20 off your first order.
Let's get grilling.
What's up, everybody? It's George from the Reslayer's Take. Hey, do you remember that feeling of your first critical hit? Or are you one of those people who are getting ready to start their first journey? I have a show for you. It's called Girls Who Don't D&D, because none of this all-female team of players had ever joined a D&D game before, or any other role-playing game. They go from learning which dice is what to challenging the gods themselves. They are surrounded by a beautiful and chaotic environment that has been described as a cross between Terry Pratchett's Discworld and Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's a world you can be a part of too. That's because their listeners perform pre-recorded sections that fit into each show. How cool is that? Those parts and the rest of the show sound amazing, with carefully added music and effects that bring a touch of the cinematic to your experience. I think the most amazing thing is that they were complete amateurs when they started, and you should really hear how far they've come. It really does make you feel like you're sitting at the table with them. You can join this group of unassuming Australians, otherwise known as the Girls Who Don't D&D, on any device that lets you stream podcasts. But I'm warning you, this one is addictive, heartwarming, and heartbreaking, and very, very funny. And I hope you enjoy. Bye-bye! Welcome to the Reslayer's Take. I'm George Primavera.
And I'm Nick Williams. You can listen to new episodes of the Reslayer's Take every Monday, anywhere you stream podcasts.
Or if you want to listen to the podcast 2 weeks early and uninterrupted by ads, join Beacon at beacon.tv.
Last but certainly not least, if you're enjoying the story, please consider leaving a rating and review. Your feedback might inspire someone new to join this adventure.
Now, without further ado, enjoy the show. Welcome to a bonus episode of the Reslayer's Take. I'm George Primavera.
And I'm Nick Williams.
And today, Nick and I are discussing the world of Exandria and storytelling as GMs with the man, the myth, the legend, Matthew Mercer, the creator of the world that Reslayer's Take takes place in and the magical world of Critical Role.
Yeah, truly sitting at the table with giants.
Exactly.
Just incredible. He is the GM. I mean, if you have anyone just picture a GM and sketch it down on a piece of paper, they're drawing Matthew Mercer.
Exactly.
It is who you think of.
They're drawing that hair, that cardigan. Absolutely.
Yep. And it truly just so much fun.
We had such a great conversation with him today.
Such a great conversation. Got into a lot of great stuff. Some stuff right off the bat that is a little deep cutty. I think for first-time listeners, the Slayer's Take is a small piece of a much bigger world that Matt has created. Multiple continents, huge, spans years and years and years.
We get into a little bit of that nitty gritty with the Slayer's Take being sort of like under the secret guidance of a sphinx known as Osisa, which is something that you might know if you followed along with Critical Role Season 1
or watch the animated
show. Absolutely, on Amazon.
Yeah, but we get into some of that. We talk about the pitfalls and the joys of co-GMing, which is so much fun, and how the two of us ran Reslayer's Take.
Mm-hmm.
And so exciting to just talk with Matt about how his process works and about our process.
And I was surprised to learn that Matt had done some co-GMing himself.
Yeah.
So had some awesome insights on like how to make that work at your table. In fact, some of the back half of this conversation is some excellent advice for anybody thinking about doing some co-GMing of their own, or just like there's some great stuff, little kernels of wisdom that Matt doles out to us, just about like generally trust at the table, which is great, and passing story back and forth to each other.
Yeah, and so exciting to hear his take on other GMs coming in like us and coming
Like
in
us.
and playing in his playground. You know, we get to build sandcastles in his playground that he's set up so nicely, and so awesome to hear his perspective on people coming in and exploring in his world that he's created.
I know, imagine making a fantasy world for like over a decade, and now like all of these new GMs are coming in and adding their own little special flavor. And I think, you know, Matt, as we know, has played a character in one of these campaigns, and as Matt will lay out, like playing a character and becoming sort of like a participant in the world that you create means there's always little things that now even he is sort of like are a mystery to him.
Yeah.
Which is such a unique thing. I don't think many GMs can speak to that experience.
It's, I think, such a unique experience for anything. Is it like creating something that's so big and gets so much larger than yourself that you get to be told by people at conventions like, here's what I'm doing in your world, and here's what Vox Machina did in my campaign, and here, like, you know, Grog came in and did a cameo here during the. I mean, it's so exciting. I mean, it's got to be the coolest thing to just have an engine that runs past you, you know?
Yeah, I know. It definitely got to be such like a joyful experience to hear how many people love your world and are making their own creative choices in it.
Well, anyways, keep listening and enjoy our conversation with Matt Mercer. Creating really great retail experiences is tough, especially with multiple stores, teams of staff, fulfillment centers, separate workflows. It's a lot. But with Shopify Point of Sale, you can do it all without complexity.
Shopify's point of sale system is a unified command center for your retail business. It brings together in-store and online operations, even across 1,000 locations.
Imagine being able to guarantee that shopping is always convenient. Endless aisle, ship to customer, buy online, pick up in stores, all made simpler so customers can shop how and where they want, and staff have the tools they need to close the sale every time.
And let's face it, acquiring new customers is expensive. With Shopify POS, you can keep existing shoppers coming back to your stores with consistent, tailored experiences and first-party data that give marketing teams a competitive edge.
Want more?
Yeah!
Check it out at shopify.com/r/ all lowercase and learn how to create the best retail experiences without complexity.
That's shopify.com/r/.
Cha-ching!
With the planning, recording, and editing that go into the Reslayer's Take, Nick and I aren't left with a lot of time for exercise.
Luckily, our sponsor, Tonal, has helped us use the time we actually have to create personalized workouts just for us. Tonal learns from your movement and provides suggested weight recommendations for every move, and they even give you detailed reports on your progress.
They create personalized programs and workout suggestions based on your individual goals. Like me, I want the rogue-like agility to backflip over dungeon traps.
And I want the berserker strength to hold a heavy door up for my friends so they can escape the undead hordes thanks to my heroic sacrifice. With Tonal, you can do it all. It's like having a personal trainer at home with you.
Unlike traditional gym equipment, Tonal uses adaptive digital weight to advance your training techniques.
Whether you're a professional athlete or a cake-loving dungeon master like us, Tonal can be trusted to help you become your strongest, most fit self.
Right now, Tonal is offering our listeners $200 off your Tonal purchase with promo code RESLAYER. That's Tonal.com and use promo code RESLAYER for $200 off your purchase.
Tonal.com, promo code RESLAYER for $200 off.
Let's roll those athletics checks.
Oh, you guessed it, it's George, and I'm here to tell you about a new amazing podcast that you are going to love from HeadGum. In this improvised narrative role-playing podcast called Rude Tales of Magic, you will join artists, writers, comedians, all from Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, Comedy Central, Marvel Comics, and more as they fight and fumble their way through this madcap and exceedingly rude fantasy wasteland of Cordelia. Branson Reese and his Jester's retinue, Christopher Hastings, Carly Minardo, Tim Platt, and Joe Lepore, as well as Allie Fisher, star as a group of unlikely survivors: a talking crow, a lich in a wig, a bubbly fawn, a Sasquatch punk, and a tiefling hunk, who must solve the mystery of Polaris University's vanishment and return balance and higher education to their world. It's going to be very hard and very, 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 very rude. Whether you're a longtime lover of the series or a newbie to Cordelia, this tale is one you definitely don't want to miss. Subscribe to Rude Tales of Magic on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Enjoy! Welcome back, folks. We're so excited to have Matt Mercer with us, the creator of Exandria. And my buddy Nick is here as well. We're going to be chatting all things D&D. I'm so excited to have you, Matt.
Yeah,
Hey,
happy to
Matt.
be here. Thanks for having me.
It's so fun to be around this table with you.
I know. We just finished episode 6 of Reslayer's Take, so we've had an incredible time with our most recent special guest, Dominic Monaghan, as Janet.
One of several hobbits we're trying to cross off our list, our hobbit hit list.
Hey, same man.
Oh, I hear you.
We can just continue to build this list together and then just knock it
Target
down.
all the hobbits.
Look, man.
Gotta cross them off the
Life
list.
goals.
Wild to have such an insane character be so perfect for Exandria, this spectral bard.
Yeah.
With such a storied history of bards in Exandria. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I feel like he really found his incredible specific niche in the pantheon of bards in Exandria. is like old aging rock and roll school teacher vibe.
His whole sound studio with all the sound stones dangling from his little caravan. Yeah.
very
Makes me
fun.
so. I remember when Sam first played Scanlan in the first campaign, there was a number of people that were like, "Well, how could you ever play a bard after that?" And I love everyone that steps up and goes like, "Here's how.
Here's
and
how.
Here's how. And here's how." There's so many different ways you can do it, and so many other ways that are still to be explored. Scanlan's just one, if not a large looming one at times, because Sam Riegel is a freak.
A towering fellow, Sam Riegel.
Truly.
Hey, 1,000 different genres of music. Why not 1,000 different bards?
Exactly.
We gotta have so many.
Well, and I love when people are like, my bard is just gonna insult people, and that's the only thing. Like, that's his art form, and you can get so creative. with that.
Entirely valid. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's such an honor, by the way, to sit here with you after having gotten to play in Exandria. You are the creator of Exandria.
Somehow.
For years. It all started with you. I mean, it's true. You guys played that home game, and now it is like everybody is following every little detail that drops about Exandria, and it's been like such a pleasure to be able to just like color in some little blank spaces here in collaboration with you guys.
Oh my goodness, the pleasure is mine. Honestly, a lot of these things, I build them for my friends in my office, just by myself, my little pocket dimension, and hope that it's cool for them. And then by the end of arcs and these games we've played, I look back and go, okay, no, this is a lot of stuff that's been built here, and I hope that it gets to live on in other ways.
Yeah.
So one facet of that that's really exciting is, we release some of these books and people run campaigns in Exandria and getting to meet fans at conventions and
They tell you their stories.
Yeah. I'm like, so tell me a little bit about your campaign, and they get to share the stories about the things they're doing in Exandria, how they've tailored and changed Exandria for their home game, which I love too. That's cool. It's another form of coolness to hand it to other GMs in the Critical Role family to create canon things that exist within it as well that I would never have the opportunity to expand upon. So it's genuinely a pleasure for me to be able to hand the torch to you two and the rest of your players and have you all just continue to build out this world. It's so exciting.
There are a lot of GMs with little torches from you at this point. What's that like? Like talking to these other GMs and like hearing their perspective on Exandria and incorporating it into your greater lore?
It's the coolest thing. I don't subscribe to the auteur theory. I think the best art is through collaboration, and my favorite joy is through collaboration. So while I created Exandria in theory, a lot of Exandria is built in a collaboration with my players and me thinking about my players when I'm building it. and then now having the ability to expand that into other groups and other GMs and other world builders is so fulfilling to me. You know, I love the idea of creating something that grows beyond the scope of my own creativity, something that takes a life of its own, and this is definitely an example of that. So I'm filled with absolute pride and genuine excitement to be able to like live in the world that I started through other people in ways that I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, like it's cool to be like, yeah, I made this and I know everything that's happening in the world. I don't. I know a number of things in it and kind of overarching themes, but then to kind of hand that over, it's exciting to be a person that can experience the world from a place of excitement and mystery and being immersed and invested in stories that I have no control over in this world that I started is such a cool feeling. So I'm loving it up. I'm loving it.
That's all. Yeah, I mean, it was such an honor for us just to, I mean, you've created this truly immaculate, massive world, and to just come in and get to like drop into these little blank spaces and make our own little like, you know, pocket in them is so fun, and it was so exciting for us when we first started.
Yeah.
Like such a, I mean, I think when we first sat down to be like, okay, where do we want to go? Because I think that the original, when we first started talking about it, it was like kind of wide open. You know, what bit of lore speaks to you? Like, what would be an exciting thread to pull? And there were so many options immediately because it was like, oh my God, what about the Grinners? Like, what's that going on?
I had a
here?
hard
Like,
time believing that, like, when we first started meeting with you guys, you were like, yeah, just like find what's interesting. Nothing's off limits. And I'm like, nothing's off limits. Like, you know,
so much going on.
So much going on. And I think that, like, obviously, like, our first inclination was like, oh my gosh, like, how are we going to put our story, like, right in the middle of this world? But then we found out there's so many of these, like, really beautiful loose ends in just like these smaller places that it's like a really fun way to like kind of like a fungi under the ground just sort of latch on to little pieces of big like Critical Role lore, Exandrian lore, and just kind of like connect to it rather than like diving into it necessarily. And that, I think it's only possible in a world that is fleshed out from the center.
Yeah.
It's very much been an intent with Exandria, and I think long-form role-playing games as a medium, whether it be consumable media, like through podcasts or actual play, or just at the table, can reflect the messiness and openness of life in ways that other media doesn't allow. You know, film and television, there is an expectation of tying all loose ends together.
You can do it wrong.
Yeah, and you can really wreck that up. But in this space, much like life, not everything concludes. In fact, to me, that feels more honest. And I love the idea of tying main stories that are pertaining to our players that feel like they need resolution for everyone's enjoyment to definitely come to resolution, but leaving a lot of things to live on outside of the main story that maybe will never be answered. Because even that mystery means that when the game is over, me and my players still get to be like, man, I wonder what's happening over there. And that's how life is in a lot of cases. And it allows that opportunity now as we bring, you folks into this fold to run with it, to then excite us and get to surprise each other. And to me, that was as unintentional as the goal was at the beginning of Exandria to become this kind of living, breathing space on the scale that it is. I'm so excited that it's happened to get here and continues to grow in a way where it does feel open enough to where, we're not stringently like it has to be in these spaces. Only these themes are explored in the world, and there's really only one or two stories that can be told here. Like anything can be told here, and there's still so much in the world that hasn't even been touched on. We've barely skimmed the Shattered Teeth. It's still still in its infancy of being fleshed out in like official Critical Role avenues. And so this whole Reslayer's Take experience has been a really, really exciting opportunity to kind of to watch the fog of war on the map begin to be pulled back and see what other lives are happening, what other experiences are occurring.
Yeah, that kind of brings us to talking about not loose ends, but things that just kind of exist outside of the campaign with Slayer's Take itself. Obviously we were such big fans just because it's the coolest thing ever. The idea of this like monster hunting,
it's a quintessential D&D idea, but with like such a good Exandrian twist that gives it like such a deeper layer with like the lore of the Sphinx and Osisa and all that stuff.
And what kind of we know what really brought us to it, but when you think about the Slayer's Take, like what makes it special to you as far as, I know that it was the first time on stream that you had guests come in, and it kind of feels like this very rich, unmined space of like anything can happen with the Slayer's Take, especially with, time passing, and, eras of the Slayer's Take, different, graduating classes of the Slayer's Take. What is that, like, how do you feel about it and kind of looking back on it like that?
The Slayer's Take in the Vox Machina campaign was a number of firsts and beginnings. Like to what you said, it was the first time we had guests from outside of our game come in and kind of flesh out their new facets of Exandria and kind of broaden that experience, which was so cool. It also reflected the beginning of the introduction of the Vestiges of Divergence and the larger story for Vox Machina. It was what kind of broke their personal narratives open into a much larger scope in the world and showed them the beginnings of a path that would become truly epic by the end of the story. So this place, what initially looks like this tiny little ramshackle, rough and tumble, mercenary guild of monster hunters, is really much more beneath the surface, to what you said, and is tied into the larger lore through the Knowing Mistress and Osisa, and the idea that this isn't just a group of people that are killing for money. That's part of it, but there is a much larger kind of mindset and management over it. There is a purpose that exists, especially within a very like faith-controlled, kind of religion-controlled realm as Vasselheim and the surrounding Althansia. Yeah. So it introduces a lot of layered morality to it, because there is a religious undertone in some way to the connection to the Knowing Mistress through Osisa, and a responsibility that is tied to it in being protectors of the overarching good and the shepherding of the future in a way. Through a bunch of misfits and people that likely themselves stumbled into this looking for some quick money and to, get their swords, some good use out of it, and all of a sudden find themselves caring and having to try and be more involved. And so there's a lot about the Slayer's Take that is a unique mix of a lot of different things. And it was a really also ripe area that hasn't been developed beyond what we saw before. So it's a familiar place, but it also exists only somewhat peeked at from the audience and even from the player's standpoint.
That whole element of everybody going in for like financial gain, but also there's like sort of a broad purpose the whole thing's being steered towards generally good, makes it such a rich place for there to be a lot of dynamics just within this one group, which is like, I mean, even in Reslayer's Take at the end of episode 3, if you've listened, you probably heard that by now, we get some bad vibes from Grim Heldwell, who is like seemingly sort of in charge of at least a section of the Slayer's Take, kind of like we've seen other previous leaders of the Slayer's Take. I mean, especially now that like obviously the hardcore CR fans who've been watching you guys since the beginning of campaign 1 are super familiar with the Slayer's Take, but now we've seen it on screen too with the show. Everybody knows the Slayer's Take now. Which, and seeing it represented was also just like, a really encouraging thing to know that when everybody listens to all of our little details about the Slayer's Take, they're going to have like an image in their head, which is so cool. Yeah, it's like a base to jump back to.
Yeah, that was really exciting when we saw it on the show too, the animated show. We were like, oh, great! Like this is exactly what we were picturing in our heads. I think it's such a. I think it also just speaks to like the average D&D, like kind of beginning D&D campaign in a lot of ways too, is like you get in to like get treasure and get rewards, and then there's like hopefully if the GMs did their job correctly, you get a deeper meaning and you get a bigger, richer story out of just like not just finding a cool weapon or finding money,
It's almost like I think of the Slayer's Take in some ways as a way to trick dubious members of society into becoming less dubious members of society. But like the pot's slowly boiling until you realize, oh no, I'm a hero.
I did good.
Well, I guess I'm already here now. It's kind of.
Guess I've already been a hero for 6 months. I guess I'll keep being a hero.
It's a fun base behind it. I'm actually curious because I before Critical Role ever started, I did run a campaign as a co-GM. With my friend Zach Hanks for about 3 years. and found a lot of really interesting and fun facets to it. I'm going to ask the two of you who've been co-GMing a number of projects through the years, and Reslayer's Slake as well. What is it that really excites you about being able to run this as two people as opposed to a singular GM, and what facets of it have surprised you since having experience as a solitary GM?
Yeah, so Nick and I have been playing D&D together for a very long time. I think more than 10 years now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, since sophomore year of college.
Yeah. We were not we didn't play when we were young. We discovered it pretty late in the game, so to speak, as when players discovered D&D. But we fell in love with it immediately. I was kind of the ipso facto GM for a while, but Nick was always really heavily involved with coming up with his character backstories that would inform what I would GM, and then we started our podcast Hero Club together, and a lot of that world creation, even though Nick and all of our friends are often players, we do a lot of that world building together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we were talking about with Daggerheart a little bit before, how you kind of create that world together in session 0.
Yeah.
And we, especially George and I, always kind of put a lot of thought into okay, what is the next area we want to explore and what kind of genre or season or whatever, and we build that out. And coming into this, it was so exciting because, we've had, in this kind of dynamic, George is DMing kind of in the classic sense, and I am a perpetual NPC with Timpani Guff. And it really helps, I think, because, we have story ideas that we are trying to lay in front of the players. And a lot of times when you're just DMing, you know this, you are here is the beautiful road ahead that I've crafted over the last, 48 hours.
Yep.
And then they're great, we're going to go to this other town that you've never heard of over here. And it's
But what's that big rock?
What's that big rock? We're going to go to the rock.
Great. Yeah,
Cool. It's supposed to be a dark urban noir, and we're going to a rock in the middle of the woods. And so I think it's good kind of having this two-hander dynamic, because I can, as Timpani, not, railroad the players or push them towards anything, but I can ask questions or speak with the players in a way that a DM wouldn't be able to do normally. Right. Where I can kind of be what do you guys think about this? How are you feeling about this? And that can all be in character in role play, instead of a DM being you should go look at this thing. I as Timpani can be I'm going to open this closet door and see what's in here, and then you guys can deal with the closet door. I've made the choice.
Yeah, it's fun to give Nick has full player level autonomy when he is with the table, but also has DM knowledge because we created the thing together. Yeah. So he is able to trigger events in a really fun way, but let the players deal with it. We also make sure that as we're both DMing, we leave lots of room for the players to really maneuver and make their own choices. And because Nick has all this DM knowledge, he can fit really well into a combat scenario that kind of lets the players be featured more, but allows him to sort of as if a Lakitu hovering above a Mario Kart race.
Yes.
That's right. It's just
That's a pretty great analogy.
Yeah, right? He can just be
exactly.
Oh, they're getting in trouble and I am a druid. Let's heal them up a little bit. Yike, yike, yike.
And now I'm stuck in quicksand.
And now I'm stuck in quicksand. Yeah, and so we have a really fun time with Timpani being both a boon to the party, but also a hindrance.
Yeah, it's really fun because I know where the story is heading. I can almost be I can almost hinder the story creatively, where it's the players have to make the choice to push the story forward in spite of me, because I am putting an obstacle in front of them that pushes them to say no to me in order to get the story going, So it's these kind of fun moments where I am, kind of ruining everything for them, but it actually pushes that, makes them closer and makes them target their goal.
Your incompetence bonds them together in a lot of ways.
I think in the beginning, especially of these 12 episodes, the first few, it's a lot of people doing things in spite of me and like bonding over how incompetent and lame I am. I think it's like, great, like let's go over here and not talk with Timpani because
we've just finished episode 6. I think we'll probably see some more hindering from Timpani.
It'll continue.
Yeah,
he's
will
not
continue.
smart. He's a very dumb character. Probably the dumbest character I've ever played.
Yeah,
and
up
I've
there.
played some dummies.
Hey man,
Yeah.
there's a special kind of freedom in building a character.
You would know, right? You're well. That's
You dum-dum.
No, I'm well aware. No, I like in EXU, my character Dariax, one of the brief experiences I got to have being a player in my own world, I made the conscious decision to make an absolute airhead, low intelligence, low wisdom, and it was so freeing.
Yeah.
If you've ever been
my
in
fave.
a Forever GM and you have a chance to play it, I cannot recommend it enough. Making
agree.
both of those your dumb stat, it is a beautiful bit of freedom. But yeah, to that point, it gives you also the permission to be that troublemaker.
Yeah.
Within nature, the one that's always pushing the red button that the rest of the players are like, oh, that obviously is a trap. You're like, what?
Yeah,
Press the
exactly.
button. Like that it's a wonderful way to not necessarily antagonize, but to drag them into conflict and thus make the story more interesting, to make the stakes climb higher, which is usually the GM's position, is to try and find ways to either trick them into doing that or push those sort of stakes into it to make them go, oh no, how are we gonna get out of this one? It's fun to have that sort of lever of control within the story.
Yes.
With that knowledge.
I think having both NPC inserts really helps too, because with me as Poogs and Nick as Timpani, we're able to ask questions of the players, like how they're feeling and what how do you react to this, without having to, as a DM, lean across the table and be like,
Start role
why don't you talk to me about how you're feeling about this, or like describe to me how you're feeling, like just narrate how you're feeling. And in this style that we use for Reslayer's Take, we typically don't retreat into the minds of the players that often. We'll get like a vibe of like maybe they'll describe their face or like a little bit about how they're feeling, but we really like to explore those things via dialogue.
Yeah.
And that makes it a lot easier to do as well, I think.
Yeah, just having the little prompts of like, that was scary, how are you feeling about that, is great, because you don't get that all the time as a DM. Yeah.
I love that. And one thing I do recall, I miss a little bit about co-GMing. While I love being locked alone in my office for countless hours, my cave writing time, like the troll in shadow that I am, working with my co-GM back in that old campaign to collaborate in the world building was a very wonderful experience. We'd go find a coffee shop somewhere, bring both
the
of
most
our
fun.
laptops, and like having a sounding board to throw ideas at and have feedback for each of us, and then by the end just get excited about each other's ideas and then pile onto those ideas and iterate and develop together was really fun. Is that generally the process for you two? Do you get together at a location?
The
and
most
just
fun.
Yeah, I think both of us, we both came up through like sketch and like acting and
TV writing
and TV writing. So I think like almost everything we do creatively, we try to do collaboratively. I think for me, that's the secret sauce, is like,
Hey, you want to never have writer's block?
Yeah,
add
like-
another brain.
add another brain and just get to
Yeah,
just
it's amazing.
bad ideas around, and like having, we've been doing this a long time now, me and George, and so it's, having someone that you really trust just throw garbage ideas at and be like, what about this terrible idea, and have them, have the comfort to be like, no, that's a bad idea, but like there's a little grain in there, like let's try to explore that. And I think that's so much fun for us. Like when we sat down for Reslayers, it was just like, sometimes when you're alone, having that blank document is just like the most scary thing in the world. It's like horrible staring at it. And it's so exciting when you're collaborating, because it's like, great, like what do we get to put down? Like there's so much we can do. Let's talk about it. And I mean, I think when we sat down for the first time to talk about Reslayer's Take, we kind of sketched out like 40 episodes. Like it was like one of those things where you're just like, great. And then in like way down the line, this is like the big repercussions of this. And like we just kept pulling and pulling and pulling. And so I think the first Google Doc we used to DM, like our DM outline,
20
was like
pages
20
long.
pages long, and
Just putting things we want to use and incorporate, or things that like arcs that we have in ideas, and like multiple ways to disseminate them in case the players turn away from like the first or second prompts.
Right. Also,
Yeah.
I will say there were a couple times around the table where our players, who are incredible
Yes.
and super knowledgeable, would throw something at us that we had no idea what it was.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, like, it was so great having a team in those moments, because it was like, great, like, we're breaking for lunch. George and I, let's huddle real fast.
we gotta figure out what we're gonna do.
You just mentioned this thing. I've never heard of that before. Let's talk about that real fast.
Multiple times, Nick
Rewrote
and I,
the whole thing.
Nick and I, because the players are awesome, and Nick and I think we love when our plans get messed up.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's
That's
like
the best part about GM.
It's the gift.
That's the magic secret sauce. You know what I mean? So like now we're gonna take a wider path along here to get to here, or we're gonna, and just having like, not only do you have like an easier ability to find the path, but you also have more fun on the path, because all of a sudden Nick and I, who've been improvising together for like 10 years, have like 1,000 bits ready to go at any given moment. So like there's some stuff later down the line that we had like some bumps in the road, and I know Poogs and Timpani just immediately start like a 3-beat joke that continues through the episode because we got like boofed up a little bit. But it's like one of my favorite parts of like the Poogs Timpani interactions later on.
Yeah,
You'll hear it. Don't worry.
Yeah, you'll hear it. I think all those moments, like, they make the story. I mean, I've talked about it a bunch of times, but like a fun thing like the roles make everything, and things that go seemingly wrong make everything so much better. For instance, Jasmine Chung could not roll above like a 10 to save her life for the entire first 3 episodes, just rolling awful. I mean, and putting every die she had into prison.
Yeah.
Like, we were just like, what are you doing? We got to sage the space. Like, we got to get this out. And like, truly a nightmare. And she's like kind of our geriatric old monster hunter.
Yeah.
And so we all went shopping, like all the players went shopping after the 3rd episode, and she bought glasses, and we gave her like a bump to her thing with the glasses. That's
episode 7.
That's episode 6?
That's
No,
episode
she
7.
got glasses before then, didn't she? Well, that's a little nugget for you. But like those moments, like it's kind of, it really informs like her choice to be like, quote unquote weaker, where she is like, I'm older and I'm kind of over the hill. Those bad dice rolls really inform how great that choice is, and like reinforce that choice.
I think that also signifies player experience and leaning into the narrative more than the power fantasy.
Yeah.
Especially newer players, or sometimes younger players, predominantly male players,
Big time.
are excited for the successful roles, want to succeed at everything. I get that. You want to win the game. We've all been trained and grown up through board games, especially competitive board games, where it's like winning is the reason you play it, is to beat the game.
Yeah.
Through role-playing games, and the more you play, the more you begin to discover the joy is in the ups and downs of the story.
Yeah.
And often the failures can be more interesting than the successes. And so the longer the players have been invested in these sort of games, to that point, I love when players begin to lean into the low rolls, lean into the failures, and make that a facet of their character's experience, of their personality, or their life's journey as to why there's been challenges, and kind of embracing how it raises the stakes with those sort of failures as well. It'd be great if you succeeded at everything. It wouldn't be very interesting.
No, and
it's super boring.
every failure makes every subsequent success mean so much more too.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
For
like
sure.
the farther you fall, the higher you climb. So
Yeah.
it's just that's the beauty of TTRPG, I think. And those moments that are like setbacks are usually moments where the GM or even the other players are adding meaning to the story by justifying their failure.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like, I wasn't incompetent, but like my fear got the better of me here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, the reason I failed was this, and that adds, what are we but just 1,000 flaws all cobbled together, and some of those combined to be good things about us.
Definitely. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think coming, like we talked about before, like when TV and film like trains you to be like, this has to be resolved perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think doing story through TTRPG is so amazing because it's choices you would never make because you want your heroes to succeed. So when it's like this is the make or break moment and they fail, like if I were writing the TV show that, I'd never have them fail because I want them to win because it's the third act of the thing, instead of it being like, great, now we can pick ourselves back up after this massive failure in the most crucial moment.
Yeah, what you thought
great.
was the third act was the end of the first act. You know what I mean? That's the long form TTRPG thing really gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of the not rubric. What's the word I'm thinking of? Structure.
Yeah, the structure really changes up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's an interesting thought because I've had experiences speaking on the co-GMing scenario. Has there ever been in this game or any other that you've co-GM'd where something happens unexpectedly in the game and then a choice your co-GM makes kind of sets you on the mindset of like, what are you doing?
Oh my gosh. Didn't we?
That was the choice you made?
Wait, why? That wasn't part of this.
I am struggling to think of one for Reslayer's Take yet. I'm sure we'll get there. I think mostly the things that I am delighted by, I'm mostly never like thrown because I know Nick so well at this point, and
That's
I think
true,
we
yeah.
know each other. So when I see Nick make a choice, I almost always know where he's going.
Yeah.
And
Right.
because we really like write this together, like lay out like in the way that you would write a source book, we write each like general encounter and flesh them out together. I know when Nick is trying to reference something that is unseen, and typically know how to second beat his first beat, for example. Yes, and his improvisation. I'm sure we'll get crazy.
Well, I'm sure some moments exist, and they've definitely happened in like our home. I mean, like in our home games, they happen like all the time. Or like Hero Club stuff, it happens because I think it's one of those things where we've been doing it now for so long that it's like, well, I'm gonna purposely try to throw some.
It's not a
crazy
bad
wrench.
thing by any means.
Yeah.
It's also fun to throw your partner like,
Wait, what?
No,
okay.
I live for that.
It's so funny.
It's like surfing to me. It's like all of GMing is paddling out to the water, and then some curveball goes, and I'm like, I'm in the swell. Here we go. Wow.
But I think it's also, to what you were saying before, it's about experience and trust as well.
Yeah.
Like for anyone who's listening to this and want to co-GM, there has to be as much trust as there is lack of ego.
Yes.
When it comes to ideas and focus. Like, you have to be willing to roll with the punches. You have to have enough trust in the person that you're building this with to let them take the lead as much as you do, and throw that back and forth between the two of you. If anything feels strange, you can always discuss it at the end of a session. But not every team of GMs is going to work either. Sometimes you discover in the process that maybe you have different priorities and aesthetics you like to focus on for your games, and that's okay too.
For sure.
But like you said before, you come in here when you were world building together, that you throw your dumbest ideas at each other and you're honest about those, but find the nuggets of joy and build on it. That's a very healthy way to look at it. That being honest as opposed to just patting each other on the back for all the ideas you throw out there, because that won't make for the greatest game. So coming in there from a place of humility and trusting each other to be honest, but also know that any sort of criticism of any ideas is not because you're bad at what you're doing, but means you think there's something there, but you can make it even better. And plussing it as opposed to just denying, I think, is the big key.
I will say for for potential co-GMs out there, the GM and NPC role is really fun, and from my perspective, getting to be the NPC, it's incredibly freeing because it is kind of like an ego death where like I am literally an extension of George. Like when we're around the table, I am, if this were a normal game, I am playing a facet of George's voice. Like if we were just playing a normal game around the table, this would be George doing Timpani Guff's voice and Poogs' voice and 40 other voices. Right. And I'm getting to take like a little arm of George in this moment, and so it definitely requires trust because I am letting George fully steer the ship. I mean, like around the table, like I am not doing any sort of GM narration or anything like that, but it is this kind of great like freeing tug of war where it's like, okay, great, like we know where we're going. I'm gonna make some choices, but I know that it's an extension of what he wants and vice versa, where we're just kind of like moving together, which is a really fun thing to do. Two heads of a Hydra.
Yeah. Don't chop my head off. I'll become two Georges.
Two Georges. Yeah.
Oh my God, Matt, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Oh man, my joy, please.
And folks, that is our show. We're so happy. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you tune in next week. We've got a brand new episode of Reslayer's Take for you.
You're gonna hear all about those glasses that I spoiled. Right up top. It's not crazy or anything. Don't worry about it.
All right, thank you all so much for listening today. We'll see you next week. Goodbye!
Bye.
The Reslayer's Take is a MetaPigeon production in partnership with and distributed by Critical Role Productions, developed in association with Hero Club.